I don't know about you, but I feel that cars are getting too expensive these days. Take my Golf GTI for example. Back in 2010, this car was on sale for £22,000. The national average for a salary? £26,000. The Golf GTI in 2010 wasn't some secret bargain. It was just one option in a proper lineup. Astra VXR, Focus ST, Megane RS, all sat in that 20 to 25 grand bracket. They were expensive, but they were still just within reach, and crucially, there was choice. You could pick your flavour of hot hatch and know you were getting performance for a price that made sense. But that was then. Fast forward to today, things don't get much better. The average salary in the UK is just under 38,000. A new Golf GTI? That'll set you back 39,000, more than a year's salary. Cars haven't just gone up a bit, they've skyrocketed. Since 2020, new car prices in the UK are up about 25%, and some models like the Renault Zoe have more than doubled in a decade. From everyday hatchbacks that used to cost around 20,000 now sit well into the high 20s or 30s. Meanwhile, wages have barely moved, so the gap between pay and car prices has never been wider. And drivers are reacting the only way we can, by keeping cars longer. Back in 2010, the average car on the road was about 7 years old. Today, it's nearly 10, the oldest it's ever been, and over 40% of cars on the road are now more than a decade old. It shows a clear shift. People aren't clinging on to cars because they want to, they're holding on to them because the cost of stepping into something new has become harder than ever. Not all cars are equal though. Back in 2010, a Vauxhall Corsa would have set you back around £14,000, half a year's salary. Today, the same car can be picked up for around 18, which is still half a year's salary. So it shows that some cars have maintained their value for money throughout the years, whereas others haven't. And I have a theory why that could be. Making a car today costs far more than it used to a decade ago. Safety tech like lane assist and emergency braking is now mandatory, not optional. Emissions rules demand hybrids and complex systems, while raw materials and chips have all gone up in price. Then there's the Motability scheme, with over 630,000 users. 1 in 10 new cars are sold through it. The high rate allowance is around £330 a month, and that figure sets the tone. If you're a manufacturer, why lower the price when the market will pay more? It's a major reason car prices keep climbing. So it does appear that cars these days are priced differently to how they were back in 2010. Back in 2010, cars were priced to what the manufacturer thought they could charge for that vehicle, whether that be the cost to produce and what the car was worth from a brand point of view. Whereas now, it's all about the finance deals. No one talks about the ultimate price of the car. They talk about the monthly payments, and PCP has a big part to play with this, as does Motability. But what about higher end cars? Things where they're not typically financed, and most certainly not on Motability. Things like the Porsche 911. How do they fare compared with things like a Golf GTI? Back in 2009, a base Porsche 911 cost around £63,000, when the average UK salary was £26,000, so roughly 2.5 times the income. Today, that same entry-level 911 is £103,000, and with the average earnings just under 38, it now sits at 2.7 times the typical salary. So while the 911 has gone up in raw numbers, it hasn't raced away from wages quite brutally as you might expect. In fact, compared with everyday cars that have doubled or tripled, the 911 almost looks steady, though still firmly in dream car territory. So I'm not here to say that the Porsche 911 is a cheap car or in any way good value, but it does seem to be better value than some of the other offerings from manufacturers. Manufacturers that used to make cars that would be considered budget or just run-of-the-mill boring cars, things like Toyotas, Skodas, and that type of thing. Those cars are now associated with high initial purchase costs, big monthly payments, and even luxury car tax, meaning the Porsche 911 doesn't seem so bad compared with those. And I think there's one thing to blame here, and that is ultimately finance. Finance deals 5 years ago used to be incredibly cheap. Finance could be picked up for 1 or 2%, and people stopped paying cash for cars and started financing them. And they got caught in a finance trap. Once you've financed one vehicle with a balloon payment, you're pretty much stuck. You've got a balloon payment at the end that you either need to pay off or trade the car back in and start another agreement, which is what the manufacturers want you to do, trapping you in to yet another cycle of big monthly payments on a fairly average car. Gone are the days of people driving around in fairly affordable cars that they paid outright for. Those days are behind us, and I think the car manufacturers have latched onto that and are now exploiting it. So the problem seems to be that cars have got way more expensive. Yes, they're technically better, loaded with tech, safer, better on fuel. But back in the day, this used to be an everyman's hot hatch. And now it seems a Golf GTI is a luxury vehicle. And that's really the point of this video. New cars have become bloated with tech I never asked for, with safety systems that beep, pong, and sometimes even steer when I don't want them to. Electric cars promise the future, but come with price tags and compromises that make them hard to love. Meanwhile, the so-called everyday cars have climbed into luxury money, while the tasty stuff, the cars we actually desire, haven't drifted quite as far. The used car market offers no real escape either, with decade-old cars holding on to silly values. So that leaves us here, frustrated, looking back at older cars not just with nostalgia, but with genuine interest, because in today's upside-down market, the past is starting to look more appealing than the present.